about this time of year. It was almost Halloween. The nights were drawing in and it was dark. And he was up north, not that far from Balmoral Castle where the Queen lives. But I'm not sure if she was in or not. But anyway, he'd been out all day dry hawking. And it was getting cold and a bit dark. And the rain started. And it was that very, very fine rain. It forms almost like a mist on your clothes. And you can take your hand, you can take it down and take it off with one big swipe. It's that sort of rain that it can seep you right through to the marrow of your bones. And it can cause pneumonia or any sorts of illness. You have to take careful. And up north in the Highlands, this time of year, the permafrost can come down. So you can get very, very cold. So as the boy was there and he was getting a bit chilly and he was looking at the light going, he thought, dear God, please, could only a coach come along and give me a lift back home to Balta? And no sooner were the words out of his mouth that from behind him he could hear the clopping of horses' hooves. And when he turned around, there he could see a great big black stagecoach. And pulling the stagecoach was 6 bonny black horses. And driving this coach was a big, tall, lean-looking man. And he had a big, long black cloak that was flowing behind him in the wind. And he had a great, big, jet black top hat on. And the man pulled the stagecoach to a halt. And he looked down at the boy. And he said, where are you going to? And he said, I was wondering, is there any chance that I could catch a lift back home to Balata? And he said, well, it just so happens that I am going to Balata, but I've got a few collections to make on the way. But you can come and jump up here and I'll give you a lift home. So the boy jumped up and he sat on the stagecoach next to this man and he cracked the whip and the horses galloped on. And this man, he was a very jovial character. He was great fun, he was making all sorts of jokes and he was telling the boy all sorts of stories. And this coach went up round a windy lane and the man drew the coach to a halt. He said, just wait here for a minute, we're back. And as the lad was there, he saw the driver went up to the door of the cottage. And the cottage door opened and out came a young girl. She was wearing a long white dress that almost reached down to the floor. And she had long jet black hair and very pale skin. And she followed the driver and he watched as he opened the door of the coach and the girl climbed in. And then the driver got back up and a crack of the whip and the coach was off again. Well, he carried on with his story and he carried on with the jokes. And the coach went up round another bend and the driver again drew it to a coach. He said, just wait here a minute, I'll be back in a second. And the boy watched. And again, he went up to this cottage. It was a little whitewashed cottage with a thatched roof and smoke coming out the chimney. And he watched. The driver went in and then when he came out, there was an old man walking behind him. And he was dressed in a long white gown as well. He was dressed like wee Willy Winky. And he thought, I wonder where he's going dressed to like that. Maybe he's going to a Halloween ball or a fancy dress ball or something like that. And he watched and again he walked up to the stagecoach and the door opened and the old man climbed in and he sat next to the girl and the driver got back up onto the seat and he cracked the whip and the horses galloped on. Well, the boy looked through the window and he thought it was strange because usually when you get into a coach you'd say, good evening, bad evening, a dreek evening, whatever it is. You say something, but not a word was said. Not a word. And the lad thought this was terrible strange. But anyway, the coach went on, it went round a corner and it went past a wood. And again it came to a cottage, and the old man turned around and he said, well, he said, Johnny, he said, this is my last collection of the night, but I'm a little bit early, he said, so you just wait here, he said, and I'll go on in, he said, I'll be back in a minute. So he watched the driver and he walked up to the cottage, and again the door of the cottage opened and in he went. And as the boy was sitting there, all that rain was coming down, it was seeping him fairly through to the bones, and he thought, what am I doing sitting here on a night like this? I must be a pure bumpot. I'll climb into the carriage with those two and just wait and stay dry until he comes back out. So the boy opened the door of the carriage and in he got. He said, evening, folks, it's a terrible evening, isn't it? And they said, not a word. They were pure white. And he thought, they look like dead folk. This is awful creepy. So he climbed out of the carriage and he walked up to the cottage, and he went under the eaves of the cottage and he had a look inside the window. And as he looked in, there was a bed. And there was an old man lying on the bed. And at the end of the bed, there was a priest. And the boy saw the priest took the white sheet and he pulled it up over the body. And he turned round to an old woman and he said, well, Maggie, he said, that's old Willie away. And he thought, what a creepy night to be looking in through a window just as someone snuffed it. And then he saw the man in the bed started raising up in the sheet, and he saw the driver of the coach there and he was beckoning him, and he saw the old man walking to the driver of the coach, and the door of the cottage opened and out the two of them came, and the boy ran back and he climbed up on the top of the coach and he thought, I know who this is. This is the angel of death, and he's coming to collect all these people to take them to the other world. And he saw the door of the carriage open and the old man would climb in. And the driver turned around. He said, well, Johnny, he said, that's the last collection for the night, he said. I'll give you enough time to ballot her. And he said, no, he said, that's fine, you know, I think that I'll just be running along now. He said, are you sure? He said, yes, because, you know, he knew there was a place called Pudding Hill. And it took about half an hour of the journey off back to the Travellers' Caravan Park. He said, no, he says, I'm a young lad, he said, I'll be running along. And he said, well, Johnny, he said, I'll not be seeing you again for a long time. But you'll know me when you see me, lad. He said, I hope not. And the boy started running. And just as he stopped, the boy turned around and said, whereabouts are you going in Ballata? And he said, I'm going to the Travellers' Caravan Park to visit a caravan called the Evening Star. Well, this was the lad's caravan. It was his parents' caravan, and he thought, I'd better run as fast as I can to beat the coach. And so he started running all the way around Pudding Hill. But when he got to the caravan park, he could see his parents' caravan, the Evening Star, was burst into flames. A big blue blaze with flecks flaring up into the sky. And then the boy saw his mother, and he ran over and he threw his arms around his mother. And he said, Mother, he said, you'll never guess what happened to me tonight. She said, I would believe you, she said, because you're not the sort of boy to make anything up. He said, Mother, he said, I had left home of the angel of death. And he told me that he was coming here to the caravan park, to the Evening Star. And she said, well, Johnny, she said, it just so happens that tonight, me and your father, we were out visiting your grandparents. So when we came back, the caravan was on fire. And tonight, we have lost everything material in the world. But she said, we haven't lost everything. The boy said, but Mother, he said, I always believed that once the angel of death was summoned, he couldn't go away empty-handed. And she said, Johnny, your dog, the Alsatian Princey, was in the caravan when it all went up in a green blaze.